Hello everybody and welcome to the Helldivers 2 60-day patch Electric Boogaloo. That's what I'm going to be referring to this patch as. But we are going to be going through the Into the Unjust 4.1.0 patch notes. I won't be covering every single thing that's written here in this blog post, but we're going to be going over some eye-openers because there have been some serious changes to certain weapons and certain stratagems for the better, as well as certain throwables that stand out to me. What I want to look at first, however, is the bottom, the optimizations here. Now, when the Baskinator posted this the day before on X, a lot of people were like, what the hell does enabling powered ragdolls mean exactly? So I fed these into Grok and asked it to explain each of these posts in a very simple format. Basically, I told it I eat crayons and to explain like I'm 5. And it gave us a breakdown on each of them. Some of them are pretty obvious, but some not so much. So anyway, the first one with the status effects was pretty obvious. This means they made game effects like poison or fire run smoother and use less computer power, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. However, moving on to the next one, optimized physics by only enabling powered ragdolls when needed. They improved how bodies fall or move after dying, but only turn on fancy version when it's really necessary to save resources. I don't think it's essentially when dying. I think obviously when it's being something is impacting the body that would necessitate flying halfway across the map. This also marries up to the changes that they've made with the bunker turret. So what the developers were saying in the patch notes video is that, which relates to this ragdolling, when being hit by one of the bunker turret lasers, you will be ragdolled. However, if it hits something close by to you, you're not going to be impacted in the same way that you were in the past, like ragdolled across the map when the laser hits you about 10 yards away or something like that. You know, I think that's what this is referring to. Next up, optimized physics body handling for damage calculations. This fixes how the game calculates damage to bodies in a more efficient way so it doesn't slow down the game. Pretty self-explanatory in itself, and I guess nothing too special, but nice that little things such as that, when it comes to calculations, are even being streamlined to make performance that much better. Optimized automaton units and NPC eyes by changing them from particle effects to shaders. For robot enemies, automatons, and other non-player characters, they switched the glowing eye effects from tiny moving particles to simpler color tricks, shaders, to make it faster. I guess another example of streamlining certain aspects of the game. Optimized AI behaviors by analyzing and stripping out redundant code. They cleaned up the code that controls enemy smarts AI, removing extra unnecessary parts to make enemies act quicker without wasting power. More streamlining stuff, which is a good thing at the end of the day, because we did find out from that blog post that there was a lot of unnecessary clutter was still in the game, or at least someone ended up discovering that by looking into why on earth the PC version was like 130 gigabytes big. That's what was being referred to when it came to HDD drives that people were still using for the game, and it was because of that that they were having to probably deal with, use situations like this just to please everybody. But obviously I think those things are going to change. Improved audio I/O performance. This makes sound loading and playing faster and smoother in game. I was still experiencing audio issues up until the patch yesterday. Again, I'm a casual diver. I don't play all day every day, nor do I play every single day after work, unfortunately. But even I was getting fed up with the audio performance of the game. It was awful, and I just want them to make it very obvious that a ridiculously sized enemy is trudging towards you. I did a breakdown video on the science behind a charger, basically, or how to make it better. I'll leave that in the description down below if anybody's interested in that. But yeah, it makes no sense that thing doesn't make a noise when it's running up to you. It does, but not enough, in my opinion. Optimized scattered assets such as grass on various planet types. They made random items like grass load faster and use less resources on different planets. Sorry, I was slipping into my English and American dialect then. Resources or resources. I don't know. Tomato situation. Optimized asset distribution in hive worlds and terminid caves. Similar to above, but specifically for bug planets, hive worlds, and insect caves. Terminus. Spreading objects more efficiently. So I guess, yeah, there was a lot of clutter being left over. And also with regards to the HDD and SSD situation with the game grabbing assets from certain areas of hard drives, or I guess, or doubling them up was the solution to speed things up, which has obviously caused a massive install size. Optimized asset setup and geometry for assets used in hive worlds and terminid caves. They simplified the shapes, the geometry, and set up objects in those bug areas to make the game run better. So from what I could probably understand of that is, instead of something looking utterly fantastic that barely anybody's probably going to notice, or I guess for them building, I don't know, geometry and mountains, maybe they've probably just decided to work a little bit harder on it and use one object instead of, I don't know, 6 to make something up, or 2 objects to make up 6. Optimize status effect physics and particle systems while maintaining visual feedback and fidelity. They improved how effects like explosions or status changes move and look, keeping the visuals good but using less power. By the sounds of it, a lot of optimization has gone into this game, and it seems that they've turned this around very, very quickly. So, and what concerns me for future stuff is there's a lot that has been amended and fixed very, very quickly. So it's almost like, Christ, it's like the development team have ADHD. It's like the problems just continuously build and build and build until they've got this massive pile where they're actually sitting there and looking at it every single day and being like, you know what, we've actually got to tidy this up soon. And it's not that I'm complaining, but what concerns me is that it's another 60-day patch situation that the community has had to scream and whinge about to make changes. And that, I know this is kind of just, I don't know, there is no structure to these sorts of videos. It's just me talking about a game that I love and I wish I could play so much more. But people saying that it's just YouTubers and sweats that are the ones that are screaming about performance and stuff, which it's not true. And to sit there and say that this game didn't need this is an understatement. It did absolutely need this. I've still got a bug that I seem to be I've come across one other person that has this issue out of on Reddit, on the X community, in Discord channels. Every time I boot the game up and go into any mission, whether I host it or I join a random game, doesn't matter. I land, even if I'm on my own, even if I have one diver with me or I have a full party, I can't run. I cannot do anything other than walk. Pressing shift doesn't make my Helldiver run. So I end up having to close the game, reopen it, and then it suddenly works. Now, before the comment section are like, oh, this sounds like it could be a keyboard error, or what else have I had? This sounds like it could be a Steam overlay issue. There were a few suggestions that I've tried. Change the key binding, update my keyboard's driver, disable Steam overlay. I have almost put my computer into safe mode. That I've put it into a situation where the game is running. Only the things that are running are the things that would allow me to test this at the bare bones level, and it still does it. I haven't tested it with this patch yet. Nothing has ever been mentioned about it, and it's a bug that I only know, as I said, one other person haven't. I haven't had time to play the patch to see if this works, because my idea was to come home from work, record this immediately, no structure to it, just do it as it is, because I need to start uploading more content because life's been busy. Anyway, I'm sidetracking here. I haven't tested it just yet, but I'm growing tired of that on top of all of these other issues that the game has had. So to sit there and say that people shouldn't be moaning about it and raising awareness on these things, and that it's just YouTubers and sweaters and stuff like that, it's not the case. It was needed. Don't get me wrong. It's been, I must admit that I've seen some awful stuff said about the developers because the game is badly running. But like, that's people that just, I don't know, live and die on the game, you know. But it's definitely been needed. Anyway, I'll shut up talking, but I'll start talking about what matters. Optimized various automaton explosion virtual effects. This makes robots explosion visuals faster and less demanding on the system. I want to make sure that, no, the one above I hadn't missed, we are on track. Optimized acid rain effects during acid storms. They made the acid rain in stormy weather look and work smoother without slowing the game. So much optimization seems to be going into this on a grand scale and even a minor scale. Optimized Dragon Roach fire attack virtual effects for a specific enemy, Dragon Roach. They improve the fire attack visuals to run more efficiently. Made various optimizations to the fire system, including particle and light optimization. They fixed the overall effects in the game, making tiny particles and light use less resources. Again, minor detail. Improved performance by optimizing the rendering of several shaders. This speeds up how the game draws colors and textures shaders on screen for better overall performance. Now, before we get moving on to the actual patch notes, you have to hand it to Arrowhead. Although I said I'm not happy the fact that we are at another Helldivers 2 60-day patch electric boogaloo situation, they stuck their head down. You know, they did a Halo Games. They did a Halo Games twice. But they're talking, they're posting, and the fact that they've posted before even a patch has come out to kind of give you an idea, like, here's some solids that we've already worked on. You know, like I said, a lot of these details are very small, very minor, but you've got creators like Thick-Fillet, for instance, who's able to notice these tiny little effects. I was watching his stream earlier while I was at work, and I heard that he said that they were never going to touch the Coyote, but apparently it's now in the game that it is harder to set multiple enemies on fire in groups while using the Coyote. That sounds like a nerf to me. We need people like that notice these tiny little things, because stuff like this wouldn't probably get optimized and fixed, for example. I'd also just like to point out small update at the top. It's definitely not a small update. It was 2.3 gigabyte download size, but the contents, I wouldn't consider it small, but that's a compliment. I'm just saying it. It just makes me laugh. Anyway, Into the Unjust 4.1.0. Freedom's greetings, Helldivers. Release Captain Morris coming to you this Democratic Thursday with an update from High Command. This update focuses on what matters most right now, making Helldivers 2 feel better to play. Exactly. Priority. We've overhauled how we approach patching to better target the pain points you've shared with us. That means more focus on stability, balance, and the issues that affect your experience the most. Over 200 bugs have been fixed, along with the key balance updates and quality of life improvements. Brackets for a deeper look, check out Lenart and Nicholas' video breakdown. We won't be looking at that. I will leave that in the description down below, as there's a little, obviously, it's more informative than this, and it's obviously more official. While new features are coming, this patch marks a big step forward both in-game itself and in how we work to improve it. More refinements are already underway. I will try and be brief and concise when it comes to these general changes from what I remember from the patch notes video. Do watch it yourself, though. It's a lot more informative than what I am, but if I'm being listened to at work or whatever, I appreciate you doing so, and I'll do my best with this. So when it comes to the primary, sidearms, throwables, and stratagems, the improvements have been made to increase the overall effectiveness of primary weapons, sidearms, throwables, and stratagems. Might I say that the dynamite and the pineapple, I think, grenade have been very much dealt with in a very positive manner. The dynamite can take out bug holes along with bile titan holes, and its blast radius is massive compared to what it was before, and rightly so, because nobody was using certain things, and a lot of people were just like, thermite does the trick, I'll just bring that with me, which of course a lot of the other throwables were made redundant. But there have been substantial improvements made to both the dynamite and the pineapple, seeing as pretty much the one answer to a throwable was usually just bringing the thermite with you, but obviously that needed to change because a lot of the throwables ended up redundant. When it comes to light versus medium penetration weapons, light penetration weapons generally deal a higher percentage of their total damage against durable enemies, differentiating them more clearly from medium penetration options. So light and medium penetration weapons now offer more distinct advantages. What I learned from this also was that light armor penetrating weapons are going to do more damage up close, and their durable damage along with their armor penetration damage has been increased from what I remember. SMGs and pistols. The SMGs and pistols have been adjusted to emphasize their role as close quarter weapons. Close range damage has been increased and damage fall off has been increased to reinforce their short range combat identity, which is a good thing because I feel sometimes that pistols were very, very underwhelming for how powerful they are meant to be. Particularly, I find that the Talon should be devastating up close, seeing as it has no drop off either, and I believe it's like 200 damage a shot. I feel like sometimes even chaff were not being dealt with immediately, but that could have just been me being a completely casual diver. Unfortunately though, what isn't mentioned in SMG and pistols, and seeing as the Bushwhacker is used as a sidearm, and I believe it's I think that's a special, isn't it? I would quite like to know how devastating that is up close. I was always surprised that the Bushwhacker was never medium armor penetrating. Very, very surprised. It's light armor penetrating. And to be honest, I was hoping that the Bushwhacker would have just been my answer to a secondary or a sidearm at least all the time. And I'm being quite disappointed with the fact that it just feels useless. There's so many better options out there. So I'm yet to try that in this patch, but it's going to be the first thing that I load in with. I want to see how that hits now. But that's quite a useful little update there. It's nice to know that in a pinch, you like to pull your pistol out and do some cleanup efficiently and effectively. And I feel like if you're going to be doing close quarters combat, it needs to be effective. So I applaud this change. Melee weapons and throwables. Melee weapons and throwables have been improved to make each feel more impactful and unique in their function. I know that damage has been increased in some of them, and also speed at which you are slashing has also been increased in some, along with armor damage from what I understand, or durable damage. I could be wrong there, so again, check the video out yourself. I'm just paraphrasing. And the absolute GOAT of updates with this patch, resupply rack. The resupply rack is not climbable anymore. You did it! So yeah, absolute A-class, top shelf quality patch update there. And so just quickly touching on the details of the throwables. For instance, on the dynamite, damage has been increased from 700 to 1,000. Armor penetration increased from medium to heavy. Great move. Demolition strength increased from 30 to 40. Stagger increased from 30 to 40. Uses decreased from 4 to 3. What? Don't feel like that was necessary. Pineapple shrapnel from main explosion increased from 7 to 18. The pineapple didn't pineapple in the very beginning. Demolition strength on the main explosion increased from 20 to 30. Inner radius of shrapnel explosion increased from 1 to 2.5 meters. It's a hell of an increase there. Damage on shrapnel explosion increased from 70 to 100. Nice. Removed lifetime on the shrapnel. Don't know what that means. Shrapnel explosion decreased from 6 to 0. From what I believe, there was a mistake with the design of the pineapple when it was initially released, in the sense that there would be mini shrapnel that was more powerful than the original shrapnel, and it did something in the process. So that's why it's from 6 to 0. I know that sounds mathematically, that's like, what? You're removing something. But there's method to the madness there. I do again recommend watching the patch video. Now let's have a look at a few of the primary weapons, at least a couple that have stood out to me. Now, I remember the days when the Pummeler was the absolute GOAT against the bots. It's seen a little bit of love, but I don't think it's going back to the glory days, as its damage has been increased from 70 to 85. The durable damage increased from 7 to 18. So I imagine at close quarters, that thing is going to punch or kick like a mule, which is great. Stun value per projectile increased from 1.5 to 2. I'm still, and I know people aren't going to be, well, most people aren't going to agree with me, but if you have a gun that has a stun effect, and it is designed to stun, every single shot should stun. Otherwise, don't add a stun ability. I don't like this. It feels like the gun is magic, and it's been given a little buff by a wizard, and it's like, now you have the ability to stun. Like, I don't think the gun or the game should therefore be picking and choosing what, but I just don't understand how stun doesn't work that way. I disagree with it. If the gun has stun, every bullet should stun. End of story. That's the way I see this thing, and that's how the Pummeler was the absolute GOAT in the glory days. But the stun value has gone up. Well, I don't know. I'm going to give it a go at least, but the drag has been increased from 0.6 to 1.2. And again, as you can see here as well, the M7S SMG's durable damage has been increased from 7 to 16, as well as a damage increase to 70 to 80, along with the STA-11 SMG, which needs to have seen some love because it's pretty useless ever since that war bond dropped. But that one's durable damage has been increased from 7 to 18. So SMGs are going to be played with a lot more, seeing as when it comes to close quarters combat, they are going to be punching, and a lot of people may well be using stratagems as a primary to some degree, you know, now that SMGs seem to be getting a little bit of love, especially with close quarters combat. I like to see it. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not doing a deep dive on this entire patch list. It's there for you guys to check out yourself, but I wanted to now move on to the stratagems because the Old Ye Faithful Stalwart has had a damage increase from 80 to 90 and a durable damage increase from 15 to 22. I didn't feel like there was much wrong with the Stalwart, but I will happily take those increases to the damage and the durable damage. The Flamethrower 2 has a increased canister capacity from 130 to 150, starting canisters from 2 to 3, max spare canisters increased from 4 to 5. I never initially saw an issue with the I must admit I was oblivious to the starting canisters, because if I'm diving solo, usually a lot of the time, if I don't take the Hell Pod optimization perk, I immediately throw a supply down. I haven't actually taken notice on the starting canisters, but that's very good to see. But the one that stands out the most to me, and there's one that I don't use, but oh my god, I am going to absolutely be diving with this immediately, is the Anti-Material Rifle, the AMR. Durable damage increased from 180 to 225. Woo! Starting magazines increased from 4 to 5, and max spare magazines increased from 6 to 8. That is ridiculously generous. I cannot wait to try and use that. Immediately below it, the autocannon damage has been increased from 260 to 325. Now, I think that has a lot to do with the Dragon Roach situation, where people were using the flak rounds as you would on a flying enemy, and its wings were being ripped to shreds, and it still wasn't being killed. So it's nice to see that this has got some love to kind of accommodate what that was primarily being used for again. And also the MS-11 solo silos health has been increased from 800 to 1500. The enemies will not attack it, and increased demolition strength needed to destroy it. A lot of people were complaining that the Into the Unjust Warbond, the enemies, I can't remember what they were called because they came well, they went as quick as they came because they were broken. But what people found is when they were burrowing under the ground, they were able to just destroy this silo. And it comes to a point that I did want to make with regards to how this update has been handled, because I seem to feel like that Helldivers needs a test server, because I find it bananas how, for instance, the solo silo has had to have a change like this, because that tells me it's not been played with in all situations, because the fact that these enemies were able to destroy it like that, and the fact that it needs that much of a health increase and increased demolition strength needed to destroy it, it's worrying that stuff like that gets released and then it gets changed that much too. I was thinking about it all day today at work. How can you stop another 60-day patch thing happening? In my opinion, a test server for stuff like this is what's needed. Sea of Thieves have it. Reading that patch note, and even some of the way that they comment about some of these changes in their patch update video concerns me, because it just sounds like they didn't know that these issues were would have been a thing that they then released. And that just baffles me. And I think that's because I'm used to Sea of Thieves having a test server for all of these new things, to which they then get the audience or these chosen creators in the partner program to talk about these things. Like, yeah, this doesn't work. That's what will save this from happening again, in my opinion. I did air that opinion on a Discord server that I was on, and someone was saying that it's going to cost too much money, or it will be too much of a problem for the likes of PlayStation and Xbox to sort of be a part of. And again, I'm an idiot. I eat crayons. Like, so if that is the case, that is the case. But I still think it's something that needs to be considered. Okay, we're getting close to the end. Let's move on to the enemies. We've got the flesh mobs. Target in the faces deals extra damage, finally, to its main health, effectively creating weak spots. Because we asked the devs, there were no weak spots for those. The main health decreased from 6,000 to 5,000. Most health zones are slightly more durable, slightly less vulnerable to fire to balance health decrease, which is a fair option, I believe, because of course we've learned that the light and medium armor penetration has changed. So light ammo along with probably SMGs are probably going to be quite effective against these flesh mobs. So we're going to see a lot of what's most interesting. We're going to see a lot more variety when it comes to loadout content coming to YouTube and suggestions and ideas in general. Okay, here's a few changes that I applaud when it comes to this absolute annoyance of an enemy that didn't deserve to be as powerful or as spongy as it was. The elevated overseer. I hate these things with a burning passion, along with a lot of other people. Their main health has been decreased from 600 to 450. Totally welcome that. Head health increased from 150 to 200. Nope. Head zone armor decreased from 3 to 2. Yep. Torso health decreased from 600 to 450. Yep. Arms health decreased from 300 to 250. Slight increase on how easy it is to set it on fire. Great. Don't understand why the head health has been increased in, like, no. Everything else has been increased, but the weakest point of it has been increased. I think it should have just stayed at 150. It makes sense to either aim for the head or just, well, these things were an annoyance to deal with. I don't get the head health increase, but I welcome absolutely everything else. If we have to have one negative out of all of those positives, I guess I'll take it. But I'm very happy that these things can be dealt with the way that they should be, because in the past, and even since they were introduced, I've said it all along, they don't deserve to be as much of a threat as what they actually were. And moving on to the Terminids now, the Rupture Strain. That was the enemy that came and went as soon as it basically arrived, and I'd forgotten even what they were called, but they've had some big changes to them in general. Updated textures for all Rupture Strain enemies for better readability. Movement speed when underground has been decreased. Good. Needs to surface more often when moving underground. Great, because it seemed like you were just running around in circles evading them, and it wasn't fun. Its burrow attack is slightly slower and leaves more space to be dodged, which everybody's going to welcome. Smaller damage boxes when attacking from below. Front leg armor decreased from 3 to 2, which makes sense because that's how most of the Terminids work, especially the Hive Commanders, I believe. It will prefer to emerge before attacking turrets instead of destroying them from below ground. Marrying up to what we were discussing earlier with the silo stratagem. So we've got a little bit of a buff to ourselves when it comes to the bile spewer variations. The increased size of its mouth is the weak spot. That was, yeah, that's something that's been around for a little while, it seems. They were quite spongy when it came to bullets directly to the head, or at least the weak point in the mouth, so that's nice to see. But we can also see that the Brood Commanders and Warriors have also had a bit of a buff themselves by becoming slightly harder to set on fire. So I imagine that's where the whole Coyote argument is coming from at the moment, because the Coyote was absolutely killing on that front when the Into the Unjust and the Rupture Strain first come along. It was pointless using anything else at that point. So they've kind of nerfed the Coyote when it comes to that strain over there. But most importantly, The Dragon Roach spawn rate has decreased 50% lower on difficulties 5 and 6, 40% lower on difficulty 7, 8, 9, 33% lower on difficulty 10. Destruction of the wings results in instant termination of the dragon. Wings now have their own health pool of 4,000, and it's increased how much damage the wings take from explosion. That's, of course, probably to counter the health pool, along with the fact that the autocannon has also been increased. Bile spewers slightly harder to set on fire. Larger body parts are slightly more durable. Then there again comes the fire nerf, I guess. And with the Hive Lord, improved performance during Hive Lord encounters. Okay, moving on to the Automatons. This is a nice one. Base alarming. Automaton Troopers in bases will require better visual confirmation before calling in reinforcements instead of calling them in immediately. I was a little bit confused at this because I felt like the Troopers were reacting whenever something happened in their vicinity, even if you were very far away. And I felt like that was kind of something that a bot would do if they just witnessed one of their own just get taken out from a distance. I don't know. I kind of like to think that they're smart and would be like, better request a drop in because something's going on. So I don't know how I feel about that. It was a slight annoyance. It just encouraged me to be more careful or be more thorough if I'm taking out a certain complex of a lot of automatons. Do you know? I don't know how I feel about that. I guess it's kind of a buff now because they have to see you instead of just like a sense maybe, but I don't know. That one doesn't bother me too much in my honest opinions. And now marrying back to what we were talking about earlier at the beginning of the video when it came to, I guess, the ragdolling situation. Command bunker turret removed ragdolling from its projectile explosions. And yeah, we're getting a complete nerf of fire damage across everything at the moment. Devastators, factory striders. I don't know, War Strider doesn't mention there, but yeah, slightly less vulnerable to fire. They're really going across it with that. The War Strider shoots 2 fewer grenades per salvo. Good. Shoots grenades less often. Good. Removed ragdolling from its projectile explosions. Woo! Added weak spots aim for the eyes and the vents on the back. Woo! However, hate to spoil the show on that, but it seems that the War Strider's vent is still AP4. This being posted on Reddit, as you can see. But OP says here too that unlike the Hulk or the tanks, it's not unarmored or medium penetration. It's still heavy armor, but with way less health. 500 to 700, I think, if the wiki is correct. And someone makes a very good point in saying that a lot of the reduction of the ragdolling and it firing less grenades and whatnot kind of makes sense. And as well, someone else made a very good point that the vent is still probably heavy armor because the grenades may well be capable of damaging it if it wasn't heavy armor. So it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I don't know. The bot should be smarter. And I'm also quickly throwing this video in because this was just too good to not show during this. Check out the pineapple's shrapnel explosions right now. Tell me that is not a way to clean up on defense missions. My God. I won't go through the fixes with regards to distractions, crashes, weapons, miscellaneous, because sometimes they're only specific in certain ways. There's optimizations that we've, of course, already been through. But that kind of sums up our second day, 60-day patch update. It seems good. I haven't played it. I like a lot of buffs. I have obviously had some disagreements, as you've seen in the video. And I'm sorry that this isn't more concise and isn't less chatty like my other videos, but I don't get the time to research everything beforehand, unfortunately. So I like to just drop into these and do this completely off the cuff. But it's a nice... I've said it before and I'll say it again. You have to commend Arrowhead for listening. But what I do want them to listen to, though, is open a discussion about getting a test server, because I feel like once you guys will watch the patch video, some of the language that they were using in jest to some of the changes that they have made here tells me that they need to play the game in-house more before they start releasing things. it makes me wonder whether they still have an attitude or approach to what they initially thought Helldivers 2 was going to be with regards to audience numbers. From what I remember, I think they said that they were only anticipating a height of 70,000 players in total. Obviously, it's completely blown the bloody doors off when it comes to those numbers. And I feel like they need to start taking the amount of people that are permanently analyzing, data mining, and going through every little bit here and there more seriously, because people are going to find issues with this patch. I'm certain already. Fick-Fillet brought up the Coyote nerf when it came to fire damage and those things. I do seriously believe they need a test server though, because this can't happen again. And the fact that this was anticipated as one of the biggest patches that they had, because they introduced the Hive Lord, you know, there was a completely new dynamic brought to the game. And then it was just removed immediately. And I was trying to sell the game to my friends back home. I was like, you need to get this so I can play with you guys, like if you've got a PlayStation, blah, blah, blah. And then what I'm trying to sell them has just been taken away, or was taken away, you know. But that's the end of this video. I could have made something sooner, but there was just drama going on in the Helldivers community. I might have a say on what I feel about creator programs in the future. I don't know. Maybe if you do want that, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Although I don't like usually getting myself involved in those kind of things. But from what I heard about the drama, I don't like the idea, the sound, or the assumption that Arrowhead are pretty much leaning into they're committing to the bit, and not in a positive way, is from what is being said, I guess. But thanks for watching if you've got this far. Sorry to ramble on, but this is the type of content that I like to make, and I love this game, and I hope I'm going to enjoy this patch, and I hope that it's not another case of a 60-day electric boogaloo, the final chapter. You know, it's not what I want. But welcome back, everybody, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.